With Chainsaw Man chapter 193, things, they just get going from bad to worse for Denji. In the last chapter, we already saw the guy was mentally breaking apart. Now in this chapter, Yoru is pushing him even further, but this time she's taking a page out of the Makima book of manipulation, putting her own twist on it. And just like how Makima promised to have sex with Denji if he destroyed the gun devil, Makima's sister Yoru is promising the same thing if Denji takes down the death devil. And this, my friends, is where normally you say history is repeating itself, but if we take Yoru at face value, she might actually have feelings for Denji, which, if you can't tell from my tone, I'm personally skeptical, because I think what she cares more about is seeing Denji suffer than actually care for him. In that way, she might be a step up from Makima, but she's not that much higher as far as I'm concerned, and we'll get into why I feel that way later on in the review. So we open up the chapter with Yoru continuing to poke holes in Denji's mental state of mind by getting off on the agony that he's in, smiling and taking pleasure in both the physical agony that comes from Denji having the highest set of blue balls ever as Yoru rubs her butt against his crotch, but she also reminds him of all the pain that he's felt from losing his family to the physical injuries he suffered in the time since Nayuta died. We're seeing Denji go toe-to-toe with someone who is arguably as good of a gaslighter as Makima, but whereas Makima would use more of her feminine charm to get Denji to do what she wanted, in most cases, she did threaten to have the guy executed, she still dangled that promise of potential sex with him. Yoru isn't above getting extremely physical and quite literally hands-on, as we see when she gave Denji that Deshaun Watson treatment in the back alley while it was raining. This leads to Yoru telling Denji that she knows he's putty in her hands, and it's only because she's nice to him. Taking the time to further work him up by kissing him and placing her head on his cheek and teasing him all the more, purposely telling Denji that she'll keep teasing him because she likes the way that he's squirming as she does so. She wants to be in control. It is completely toxic what we're seeing, and that's what she drops the bomb on us, confirming something that many of you have probably suspected as you've been going through Chainsaw Man Part 2, which is that it isn't just Mitaka who likes Denji. It's due to Yoru sharing a brain with Mitaka that Mitaka's feelings for Denji, they've affected Yoru as well. And your heart, it has to go out for Denji. With Mitaka, he might have gotten the chance to have someone who sincerely cares for him. Mitaka has shown signs more than once of having not just fallen for Denji, but falling hard for Denji. It's even sadder when you realize the history is potentially in the process of repeating itself, albeit in a different way. Just as Reze was implied to have fallen for Denji, and Makima ultimately stepped in to make her suffer and keep her away from Denji, all for Makima's own purposes, Yoru is doing the similar thing here with Mitaka. Mitaka likes Denji, but Yoru is there serving as an obstacle, but in a different way than Makima did. And what makes it worse, in my opinion, is that she's saying she likes Denji, and to me, that is heartbreaking, not just because of the toxic nature of it. Whereas Mitaka might have been more of a normal date for Denji, normal interactions, likely a chatterbox like we see when they're at the aquarium, Yoru is getting off on making Denji suffer. As long as she's the one who's calling all the shots, that's all that truly matters to her. And it does make you question if, for someone like Denji, who has suffered so much in his life, is it truly the only type of love he can truly look forward to? It's very cruel in terms of a question to wonder, but given his track record, it almost feels like that's a rhetorical question. Women who come into Denji's life, for the most part, they all have ulterior motives, and they might use him to varying different degrees, which is sad if you really get into what Fujimoto might be saying about toxic relationships. And with Yoru and everything she's doing, there's a potential gray area there, because it does seem like she might be giving Denji an out into not being turned into a weapon. To further prove that Yoru, in my opinion, gets off on her suffering, when Denji starts breaking down and crying, she doesn't comfort him in the way that someone who's in love with someone like she says she is would normally do with another person, where they would try to console them. Instead, she demands to see Denji cry, and she looks him squarely in the eyes to get a better look at it. seeing Denji hurt, it turns Yoru on so much that she begins kissing the guy full on, tongue in the mouth, lip sucking action, before she takes the time to pull back and tease Denji even further by asking him if he wants to have sex with her after getting his hormones all worked up. And that's where Yoru drops his bombshell. Kill the Death Devil and I'll have sex with you, but if you lose, you get turned into a weapon and I'll just kill the Death Devil myself. One of the things that I do think we can take away from this chapter is that Denji legitimately might be the loneliest person on Earth right now. When we first meet him in the series, it's just him and Pochita, who was physically there to care for him. But with Pochita, there wasn't really a question whether or not Pochita actually liked him. With Yoru, the question, it is plain as day. How much of it is Yoru likes Denji because Mitaka's feelings are crossing over, and how much is it she likes Denji because she likes to see the guy suffer? Where you fall on that spectrum of the argument will determine how you feel about the various things you see in this chapter, which, as you can tell, I'm more on the latter side. I don't buy that Yoru actually cares for Denji in any other way other than her devil instincts wanting to see Denji suffer, and she only cares about seeing him suffer. What is really interesting here, though, is that the extreme focus we've had placed on Denji running into multiple problems repeatedly, similar problems, is either setting us up for a payoff at the end of the story or is setting us up for a heartbreak. He's been stuck in the same hole throughout the entirety of the series. Almost as if he's begun to climb up out of the hole, he gets close to escaping, and then he falls right back down into it. Just like the old Greek myth story about the guy that's pushing the boulder up the hill, almost reaching the top, and then it suddenly rolls back down, and he has to start all over again. Denji is suffering in that way, in my opinion. He's unable to truly change when under these circumstances, and it makes you wonder if this is where Mitaka might come into play. Just as Chainsaw Man was able to convince her that life was worth living, you have the chance that maybe Mitaka can provide Denji with a true first step towards getting out the hole he's been inside of. Something that Aki and Power, they were in the process of trying to help him do before they were ripped out of his life. Yoru just gave herself an out to not turn Denji into a weapon. You could argue maybe Yoru does a similar thing, but based on her personality, I am skeptical of that. You also have to wonder if Mitaka might serve that same fate. Get close to helping Denji, see that there are people who care for him, only to lose them in the end. Those will be the core questions moving forward. Again, depending on where you stand on this side of the argument, is going to determine how you view things, and I am so interested to see what you guys' take on this is, because I've seen both sides of the argument. So I do want to know where you guys are. Does Yoru truly care for Denji, or does she only care about seeing him in pain? And can Mitaka save him, or will she meet the same end that Aki and Power met? Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and checking out these other videos from Anime Explained while we wait on the next Chainsaw Man chapter, which thankfully we only got to wait 7 days for this one, so no major break for chapter 194.